Okay, so people are starting to come in. We have a couple already. It's actually quite surprising, but we're going to sit around for a bit, wait for people to filter in, of course, because people are joining from all over. So these are some interesting names I'm starting to see here that make me suspect that people actually are joining from all over. This is quite cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Very multinational audiences, I see.
Yeah, it's quite cool. I mean, I'm used to dealing with Finnish people in Northern Europe, so these are some interesting names we're seeing popping up.
Yeah. Already spotting some Hungarians. Savastok, Sziasztok.
I think, do you think we'll worry people if we're sat here like judging their names as they come in? We're not stalking you, don't worry. We're happy to see so many of you come in. But yeah, we'll do an introduction in a few minutes. We're just wanting to give people a chance to join. So sit tight, grab some coffee. We'll get started quite quickly.
How is the weather right now in Finland, Darren? It's still cold and dark, or it's already getting
cold and grey. It's trying to get brighter, but it will be failing to do that until at least March. So I don't think I've seen the sun since last year. It's kind of an occupational hazard of being here in Finland. But
yeah, I mean, and being an IT engineer on top of that, right? I mean, that's even less sunlight on top of normal people.
Yeah. But that's the bonus of being so far north. The night work doesn't really matter anymore because it's always dark outside.
Yeah, you should be getting that, night shift bonus all the time, even during the day, because
I would love that. I mean, my paycheck would love that, but sadly, we still have the same working hours of everyone else, even if it is pitch dark outside. So for those of you who are still joining, we're waiting a few moments to get things kicked off. As a brief introduction, I'm Darren Richardson from Eficode, and you can see my companion here, Peter, from GitLab. We'll do a proper introduction shortly, but for now, just get comfortable, get some coffee. We'll be kicking off the webinar shortly. We'll dive into this interesting topic. Absolutely. Interesting topic for us, at least. We're both very excited to be here talking about this. Let's see how you people feel by the time we're done.
Hopefully we can pass on the sentiment. And some knowledge. Let's hope for that.
I think a little bit of knowledge would be ideal. But yeah, one thing we can state at this point is that we're not trying to abide by standard webinar rules. So if you have a question, ask the question in chat. And we will annoy and interrupt each other throughout our discussions to ask these questions. Don't feel the need to hold them to the end. Just make sure you ask, because, it's really boring for us if we just sit here for half an hour talking about our subjects. If you want to ask questions, post them in chat. We'll make sure we get them answered on the fly so you don't have to wait, because if you wait till the end, 9 times out of 10, you'll forget your question. Or we'll end up with a big pile in the Q&A section that we can't answer because we don't have the time. So ask the questions, interrupt us. We're happy to answer.
Yeah, let's make it as interactive as possible. More of a conversation, less of like a traditional tech talk or something like that.
Yep, let's do that. So it's been around 4 minutes now. I think I can start with the introductions. And let's do that. I'm Darren Richardson. I'm the security architect for managed services team at Eficode. I'm going to be talking to you about some cultural aspects of DevSecops, and then I'm going to pass over to my colleague, Peter, who will now introduce himself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Peter Bojo. I am from GitLab, working as a channel solutions architect. So my role here is to work with our great partners. One of them is Eficode, and support them as best as we can on their technical journey, enabling them using and selling GitLab and supporting their customers do the same. And my background is more on the dev side of the DevOps spectrum, so to say. So I'm a software engineer by trade and transitioned to this consultant and solution architect role later in my career. So my expertise is more on that part, like looking at source code, building it reliably, filtering out security issues before it becomes a binary or after it's already a binary, and less on the infrastructure side, just putting everything in context from my side. And I'm Hungarian, but I'm right now based in beautiful Vienna, Austria, so not so far away from Hungary, actually.
Thank you for introducing yourself. I think it's time we get this started, and I will begin by sharing my screen. So, I want to talk to you about one subject, which may seem kind of a silly subject for me to be talking about in a minute because of this slide. So, a short introduction to go after Peter's excellent one. I am Darren Richardson. I'm a security architect at Eficode, working in the managed services team. My background is technical cybersecurity. So I work with deploying and developing technical solutions to security problems. I have a couple of hobbies: books, guitars, and brutally difficult video games. None of those are important for what I'm about to talk about, but it's nice to add a little bit of flavor. And then my email, my contact. But in summary, the thing you need to take away here, the key, is that I am basically just a massive nerd. So why would you talk to me or listen to me talk about cultural aspects? And that's a completely fair question. The answers I have years of interaction with cooperative and uncooperative C-level people. I actually debated on whether I wanted to leave this line in, because I have been very lucky and have mostly had cooperative C-level people, of course, not always. And I wondered if some of the uncooperative people came here, but then again, they know who they are, so I'm not risking anything here. And I have an experience.
Playing safe, my friend. Nice.
And I have years of experience basically adjacent to DevOps. So I've been kind of working alongside it for my entire career, pretty much by accident, because of being a security person. I just kind of was always put near it and started working with it, and kind of created this mingling and this core of security, because I'm a security person at heart. But the real answer of why you should listen to me is because for me, this was so difficult. Like, it would be easy for me to say, yeah, do all this stuff because it's so easy. I personally struggled with this because I am a technical person. I'm an extremely quiet person, which is kind of strange to be hearing from a guy talking to you in a webinar. But generally speaking, I'm very quiet, and this kind of cultural thing didn't come naturally to me. So I'm in the unique position that I have suffered through this, and now I'm hoping to share my suffering with you. And I want to talk about 3 subjects today. So very simply, gathering the C-level support, a seamless experience, and moving left, and dragging culture with you, because that is what it will be at times. It's not we talk about shift left and a convenient like slide, but it's more of a tug of war when you have one end of the rope and you're trying to pull a whole culture along with you. It is a difficult slog, but these are my topics. And if you have questions on these subjects, ask them in chat, please. If you have questions on other DevSecops subjects, also ask them in chat, and there'll be time for also Q&A at the end of this session. So if you have anything on your mind that you think I can answer, just ask.
Just one comment from me on the previous slide is that I think I really love personally how you put it in a way like moving left and culture and dragging the culture with you, right? I mean, we engineers, let's put it that way, or nerds, whatever you call ourselves, right? We like approaching problems from the technical side, but especially when you are looking at the whole software development life cycle, right, or the DevOps life cycle, is just the execution part of software development, and shifting left from only that point is really, really difficult, sometimes even impossible. And I love just how you put it, like you have to drag the culture with you. You have to essentially convince, as you said, the C-level people, right?
Yep.
To be on the same train, to have the same mindset on each level of the organization, so we can actually make it work, right? Not just like us.
Yeah. And if you like that, just wait till we get to the actual section about this, because I'm not talking about anything ephemeral here. My intention here is to give concrete advice. The idea of this is to take away things you can do, like now. This is not, oh, this would be nice to have 2-3 years down the line. This is leave this webinar and do these things immediately, because you can. So let's talk about C-level support. And I want to tell you a story, because I like webinars, I like conventions, I like to attend them. And if you see me at one, please come and say hello. I am not nearly as frightening as I might appear at first glance. The large beard does make me seem like an angry Viking. I am not, don't worry. But at these conventions, I've seen a lot of people talk about DevSecops, and they're always talking about how important it is to have high-level support, how important it is to make sure the C-level is behind you, purely because what I have written on the screen here, you don't want to spend your time being asked when, why, and how much. You have more important things to focus on. And every time I saw one of these presentations, these great presenters were saying, get C-level support, get support from someone in high management. And then they left. They talked about something else. They didn't flesh out the point. And I could kind of look around and see some people's faces thinking, well, okay, I'll just wander off and get some C-level support, shall I? That shouldn't be a challenge. These people aren't busy. So I'm kind of here trying to mesh the idea together of not only who you should approach, but how. And I actually did this by doing the legwork. So I talked to C-level people, both in and out of Eficode, with this one single question. And after annoying all of them for like days on end, can you answer a question today? Can you ask a question today? How about today? They finally all answered, because as I say, they're busy people. So I have pulled together what I've discovered over the, how long have we been planning this webinar now, Peter? A couple of months?
Yeah, we started to talk before Christmas, that's for sure.
So over that time, I've been quietly in the background wrestling to get all these viewpoints together and into a set of slides. It has been a challenge, but it was quite nice to see that my assumptions were matching quite closely to what I found. But let's get into it. I'm breaking everything down into one of my favorite metaphors, which is, of course, chess. I'm not good at chess. I like chess. I enjoy chess, but I am bad at chess. So we're going to break it down into chess pieces. The best piece you can get behind you is the CEO. The most elusive piece you can get behind you is the CEO. Now, the idea is that the further you go up, the wider your view has to be. So for me, as a technical security person, it's very easy for me to kind of narrowly focus my view into just this area. But then above me, there's my boss who looks at a wider area, and his boss who looks at the largest area, and so on. So it's like this kind of wide view means that security is maybe not even on their radar. It might even be so that it's something that is too small to occupy part of the consciousness required to do this position. That said, if you can get the CEO behind you, security, and as a result, DevOps will fly. It will be stopped by nothing. And the 3 bits of advice I can give you for talking with a CEO about security is speak in terms of the big picture. The second point is cheating, because obviously use anything that would convince another C-level member, because his view or her view will cover everything. The CEO's view is of everyone. So any of those points will help. And lean into the idea of keeping pace, or maybe even outpacing, because no CEO wants to be in the crowd. They want their company to be out ahead. They want them to be in first place, delivering the best of the best. And if we look at reality, that may not always be the case. You know, there's only one leader in every field, but lean into that. Lean into the idea of excellence, because no one who looks from a CEO level wants to see anything less than that. Then there's, of course, the CTO. And the CTOs are power pieces. They are more directly invested in cybersecurity due to the proximity to technology. So feel free to talk to them in terms of actual technology. They are on the level where they can break it down with you, where they can really dig in to the core material of what you're talking about. So don't be afraid to sit down with a CTO and say exactly at a technical level what you're planning to do. They have the view to understand that. And of course, a big thing is the next 5 years, because most C-level people are very forward focused. The next 5 years are the most important. And the great thing about security is you can see the evolution of security as it progresses. If you download a database of vulnerabilities, you will see an exponential increase every year. So the next 5 years are massive leverage for someone who's looking from that point. And then, of course, lean onto parallels. So again, competitors excelling or failing in regards to security will always give you powerful ammunition.
Yeah, regarding this last point, Darren, I just wanted to ask you if you think if the strategy of fear, so to say, makes any sense in this kind of conversation. So I'm just thinking about the last couple of years, for example, the Log4j vulnerability, which I'm sure most of or almost all of our audience heard of, or these big hacks at Slack or Discord. So these big chat platforms that enables a lot of more like social hacking, right? Rather than on the technical level. But talking about these issues with these people, does that usually lead somewhere, or how do you see that? So does it make sense to talk about this?
I would actually speak in terms mostly of success. The way forward is positivity. It's easy to dwell on the mistakes that have been made. And one thing that cybersecurity does, in my opinion, really badly is it focuses like hyper tight on these mistakes. So the Log4j issue was a severe issue. It doesn't alter the fact that in the 9 months preceding Log4j, thousands of victories went unnoticed as security did what it was supposed to. Security, if I can quote Mikko Hyppönen, he said, security is like Tetris, in that your successors disappear and your mistakes pile up.
I love that. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite quotes, and it so accurately represents what we're trying to do here. So I would maintain positivity, because negativity is not a progressive tool. You might be able to use it in some cases, one I'll get to shortly, but for the most part, positivity reigns. Good question. I like that one. Of course, the easiest piece to get behind you is the CISO, because they're probably already looking at this. If you have DevOps and you don't have DevSecops, the CISO should be looking at you very, very clearly asking, wait, did we leave something behind here? And the answer is yes. We have an internal saying at Eficode, which is DevSecops is DevOps. You can't separate one portion of it. Otherwise, you're not doing DevOps properly. That's the sad truth of it. But there are some talking points here for the CISO team. So speak in terms of weaknesses. This is one of the few areas I feel you can be negative purely because of audit potential. So talk in terms of shortcomings, because in my view, the CISO, based on what I asked, is one of the few C-level people who's more focused on now. They do have a future focus too, but they're one of the ones you can talk to about the now, and that's a good tool for them. And the third one is that they've already likely been thinking about this. And if you have a CISO who's not thinking about advancing security in 2023, that's a problem. But I guess the last one we have to talk about is going to surprise some of you, because it's the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer. And now I'm giving you a moment, because I suspect some of you are sat there thinking, well, what the hell does the marketing officer have to do with any of this? But that's what I thought. And then I talked with our internal CMO, and he's like really smart guy, very technology oriented, but also into the marketing side. So he was like, yeah, absolutely. So these security coverage we see in the news is a mega trend. It's a major technology trend. It's not something that's going to disappear. And another good thing he told me is the idea that cybersecurity is not a technological threat. It's business continuity. It's the existence of a business as a business. So that's essentially the function of marketing. And then, of course, security is really good when you can get it into your branding as a company. That might be the reason that Eficode and GitLab are now collaborating to do this webinar, because it's something that helps show people that we actually are working in this space when we're not fully focused in that field. So the CMO, a dark horse, generally not going to be your priority, but they can be surprisingly effective and helpful if you can get them on your side.
And also just to piggyback on this topic, I think in terms of building your brand and showing your customers that you are a company that they can trust, right? Your product is something that they can. Essentially, what Info IT is about is we work with data, right? We store it, we display it on different screens. And what customers are essentially doing, they are trusting us with their data, right? So building on the security messaging, right, is just reinforcing that trust that we are doing everything in our power.
Yeah, so the trust is the most important.
Exactly.
Trust is the only relationship that matters. So establishing that trust through security is vital. Yeah, exactly that. But because I don't want to take all the time, let's move on. Because I want to talk about not how to, but the importance of a seamless experience, because this is something I've noticed over my career. And that's this simple fact. Developers want to develop. They were given the choice when they were in university. They were offered the same choices as everyone else. They chose to become coders. They chose to become developers. They accepted promotions to senior developers. They do not want to be operations. They don't want to be security. They like coding. And the idea that we would need coders to do things that aren't coding is wasting one of the most important resources you have in your company, which is the ability for your coders to do their job. Now, there are certain superhero coders who can hop about between 1,000 projects, hop about between dev and ops and sec. They are rare. Most coders want to focus, and you will get more of them, in my opinion, when they do. So if you have a focused dev working on a single task, single project, they have a deeper sense of fulfillment, and they become subject matter experts. So you get all these different aspects of advantage when you allow them to focus. when you try to make them hybrid roles, you fragment their time. You fragment them into different projects, and they will burn out more easily. They will get frustrated more easily. The time wasted in shifting headspace from one project to another is going to amount to hours every week if you fragment them like this. So they will, as an advantage, I'm not going to say there's no advantages to that. They will develop wider base knowledge, but it's at the cost of the opportunity to specialize. So if you want your coders to become the best they can be, the best thing DevOps and DevSecops can do is try to stay out of the way as much as it can.
Yeah, I can just only stress this one more based on my personal experience. I think this is, so when DevOps became a hot topic, I don't know, a decade ago, more or less, it was all about like every engineer must become a DevOps engineer. So you must be good at dev and ops as well. But experience just showed that's not every person can do that, right? Like simply people are not, everybody is capable of that. Yeah. And now putting security into the picture is just getting so wide that, I mean, I don't even know a person who can do all of the three of these together on the same high level, right? It's just humanly impossible to keep up with everything. So,
and the security is so wide that
security just in itself.
And that's true about ops and dev as well. So these are not surface level subjects. Exactly. We dive deep, and we dive deep often. So
and just looking at the last couple of years with Docker and Kubernetes popping up, right? I'm a developer, so I write code, and of course I learned Docker, so I can interpret a Docker file. I might even be able to write some simple things, but operating a Kubernetes cluster, that's way out of my comfort zone, right? So
Kubernetes is such a deep topic that the surface level is just never going to cut it. But,
exactly. And so, this is why I usually think or say or talk about that. I think the most important way is to be aware of the other areas, right, that you are working with, and have the deep understanding of your own. So like a T shape, right? So you have the top of the T, which is like you have a visibility into, okay, this is a CI pipeline, this is a Kubernetes cluster, this is code security, but have your own leg of the T where you dig deep. And that's how I think it can be effective for the whole organization.
Precisely. And this is honestly just my prediction for DevSecops development over the next 5 years, that it will be decided not by the best features, but by the most seamless experience. The tools you develop, the tools you deploy, are going to be decided by how little they annoy the developers who have to use them. That's kind of the blunt way I have to put it.
Perfectly put. The annoy, that's a great phrase to use.
If it's invisible, it's great. If it's not there until there's a problem, ideal. So here are the 4 targets I would suggest you aim for. First being low overhead. Ideally, your tool should be a one-click install, or your security features should be a one-click activation. That's a pipe dream. Aim for one click. You will most likely not get there, but ideally, you could just have a checkbox, security on, off. Problem solved. Then leader of the pack, because in security terms, there are 2 basic places you can be. You can either be the best or you can be obsolete, because no one wants an out-of-date, out-of-touch security tool. That's not going to help anyone. That's like a kind of just saying, yeah, we have security, we're running it from 2015, but we got a security checkbox, so we're fine. No, it's not going to help anyone.
And man, how many times I see that, like having the software bill of materials, so seeing your dependencies, right? So these are my dependencies, and that's it. But do you look at if they are vulnerable, if you don't do anything with it, just a plain old simple list, what good does it do to you? Because that was required by upper levels. Okay, but where's the value, right?
Yeah, you can't just have checkboxes when it comes to DevSecops. the tools have to mean something. They can't just be there to satisfy a requirement, because at that point you're just, walking around the limbo that you're supposed to be going under. It's just not, it doesn't work. It might have the appearance of working, but it doesn't.
Yep.
Third thing, invisible until alert. It's a security tool. If there are no security problems, it shouldn't be even visible anywhere. And the last one I will say is to follow wherever they go, because over the last 5-6 years, there's been this discussion of everyone's moving to cloud. And for all I know, they may be right. I don't claim to be clairvoyant, but so far, if everyone's moving to cloud, they're doing it slowly. And they will probably end up at the cloud eventually. It's not going to be for another 10-15 years, in my opinion, but they are going there. So the tools have to follow us. And my second to last topic, because I have a secret topic at the end, is moving culture to the left and pulling DevOps along with you, because it is a pull, it's dragging. The whole idea is culture moves slowly, and that's extremely hard to mesh with the idea of security, because security is rapid. We get, Log4j within 48 hours, massive problems everywhere, people crashing Minecraft servers and all the horrible things you could do with it. But security moves quickly and culture moves slowly. So I have 3 things I like to do. I'm going to tell you about them. I'm going to promote them, and I'm going to suggest that after this webinar, you go and you do them, because the sooner you start generating this momentum of moving security, the sooner speed will pick up, and the sooner you will find things have moved left and come to meet with you. Because that's the thing. You can't do it fast. You have to build up the momentum. So I'm going to talk about these 3 things. And the first is sharing the knowledge. So about sharing knowledge, one of the easiest things I've found that I can do to screw up everything with regard to security is creating this little self-silo around myself, where I'm so busy to doing actual technical things that I separate myself from the rest of the company or the rest of the team, that communication doesn't come through, that questions don't get answered, because security is quite often a sort of understaffed function. It's quite often done by a few people compared to other teams. So self-siloing, in my opinion, is one of the most dangerous things we can do, because then we separate ourselves from the developers we're trying to help and from the ops we're trying to secure. So we end up in our own little bubble of security and maybe looking at the wrong things. So I recommend these 3 options. First is knowledge sharing sessions. So sharing the knowledge inside your company is important. And this doesn't mean that security people, security professionals like me and Peter have to sit down and say, this is our presentation, we're going to talk about security. This is helpful, of course. Having experts in the subject matter is always helpful. But when it comes to knowledge sharing, the journeys of people who are not security experts are incredibly important when it comes to DevSecops, when it comes to security in general. Security is not for us, it is for them. So understanding how they see the journey, how they understand the transition is so important, and in my opinion, very neglected. Anyone can talk about security because we want it to be everyone's responsibility, which means everyone gets an opinion.
Yeah, I love this approach very much, that you keep yourself available essentially as a security professional, not like just sitting in your ivory tower, right, and just telling people, hey, this is wrong, again, about positivity and negativity, right, as we discussed earlier, like just like pointing out. So for example, a traditional security approach, have a merge request, right, and at the very end somebody comes in and tells you this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and this whole thing is wrong, just redo the whole issue, right? The whole work item. And then people will be not happy about it, understandably so.
That's the best way to annoy your developers into hating security.
Exactly. So, while if you are part of the process and you are there as an open person to be approachable, right? And and helping along the way, the end result is the same. You will have a secure software at the end, just maybe faster.
And without the antagonism that creates these cultural divides. But that's the exact point of the second point here, to open yourself up as a mentor and find, well, we'll not get on to find yet, but open yourself up as a mentor, as someone that people can talk to about security. And that will actually find you leading to our next topic, which is finding your security champions. So I don't know if you were all paying attention, but earlier in the topic, I might have told you that developers just want to develop. Disregard what I said. Don't disregard it completely. Now, there's a quote I like from a guy called Winwood Reed, which says, while you can predict what the average person will do, you cannot predict what an individual will do. Most developers want to develop. Some developers like security, and these people, actually some ops people also like security. Some HR will like security. Throughout your company, you will find scattered about people for whom security is an innate interest. These are your security champions. These are the people who are your extended team when you are running minor security operations, when you're running operations that are, focused on small groups. These are the people you reach out to, and you have to find these people and elevate them and get them on your side. And they can come in many shapes. So you might have security champions who are kind of your supporters. They're coming to you, asking questions, wanting to know your insights. You will be a mentor to these people. You will help them develop. And these people are great. And you will also have security champions who are absolute pains. They are the ones who question everything you do. They will bother you throughout the day with no regard for what you have to do. And you might not like them. They might annoy you. These are also your security champions. Win these people over, get them on your side, and then they are like a cannon of security knowledge and annoyance that you can turn on other people. You can face them externally and use them to deflect questions, to handle things. What you have to do is just find these people, because I can guarantee, regardless of the size of your company, you have some. And of course, community responsibility, because all for one, one for all. Security is incumbent on everyone. Make security training, internal communities, and make yourself available. I'm not going to linger over this slide because I think I'm already coming up to my time before handing over to Peter. So I'm going to quite quickly go through the rest of what I've got. But if you foster a community of security, you'll find you're no longer dragging the culture. You will find it slowly shifting to accommodate your views. And the security training, the internal community, and making yourself available are the best things you can do for these three.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate on this one more, because I think it's extremely important to be this open, because I actually had the personal experience at previous companies and previous customers and previous projects that not having this conversation between the, so to say, security folks and the dev folks can actually cause additional security issues, because developers will be reluctant to talk about things that they are not sure about. Okay, am I doing really trivial stuff, right? Am I doing SSL certificates right with my containers or with my reverse proxy? I'm a developer, I don't know, but I don't want to feel stupid asking these very basic questions. And by not asking those, this stuff might actually slip into production just because you don't have this culture of openness and
absolutely
not having stupid questions, right? Only having questions,
but
not stupid ones, right?
Yeah, the worst thing you can generate is reluctance. Like if someone is ever reluctant to open the security conversation, then you're already kind of lost, because then you have invisible things which can't even be kind of tackled. You can't even be seen. How do you discover such a thing? It's vitally important not to generate this kind of reluctance to communicate.
Yeah.
But the last subject I have to talk to is when to call for help. I'll go through this quite quickly because sometimes you have to bring in the pros. There are a lot of companies who tend to be stuck in the middle when it comes to DevOps.
And before we continue, we just received a very good question in chat, I would say. What about the opposite, too much security, which bogs or slows down development due to the restrictions? So when you're overdoing it, right?
Yeah, precisely. This is the kind of that we were talking about earlier. We have this kind of engagement where the security is actually, or should be aiming to be, invisible until there is a problem. That's, I would say, how you deal with that, because too much engagement it shouldn't even be possible, in my opinion. The automation should be set up in a way that, for example, you're only being held back when security issues are discovered. It shouldn't be about a kind of awkward process of, oh, now I have to add some kind of dependency scanning to my pipeline or something like that. That should be there as default. And then only when you see a flashing warning saying, we found a problem, that's when security should be there. So yeah, fully avoid all unnecessary engagement. Try and keep it as minimal as possible. Just, it all comes back to, don't annoy your developers with things they don't want to do. It's really that simple a solution.
Yeah, I agree. And regarding the question, I think automation could be one of the ways of doing this in a productive manner, right? So you are not reducing the, let's say, the amount of effort that's going into security, but you reduce the amount of time that is going into it, right? So automate whatever you can, make this part of the process. Don't leave it to the last part, right? So shifting left, as Darren excellently said, as we need to do shifting left on the side of the culture. So basically putting it in front of not just technical people, the topic of security, we need to do the same on the day-to-day level or the day-to-day life of a developer. So like doing security checks, let's say at the beginning, when you start working on a feature, not like, okay, I already developed a 500-line big feature, right? I replaced 2 namespaces in my application. I created 2 new Docker containers, and then a tool checks everything, and then I get hundreds of thousands of problems. If you do it iteratively, so if you're doing as you are going forward, the total time that you are spending with this can be reduced because you are fixing stuff before they are piling up. Yeah.
The small steps in iterative process are like excellent ways to put it. And also it does require more of an investment at the start for that automation generation.
Building out the infrastructure for it, right? So
but
having
it pays
the
off
system
so quickly.
Yeah.
Like
yes.
The return on investment of not having these massive blockers because you're doing one security check and then have to go and rebuild half of what you've written. So yeah, it's a good question. And I would say automate and ensure that the experience is as seamless as possible.
Yeah.
Back to the topic at hand, when to call for help, bringing in the pros. If you find yourself stuck in the middle without the security in your DevOps, then it might be time to consider calling for support. Of course, I'm here because Eficode are that kind of support. We do have a DevSecops assessment. Essentially, we like to go into the company and see how your security and DevOps culture is. We understand it can be hard in these inertia-bound organizations to start the movement. So we've developed a set of tools to help do that. we analyze 5 different areas. So mindsets, how you feel about security, enablement, so how you're actually doing security, then vulnerability management, a maturity model, and CI/CD. This is essentially just a process we run alongside your developers and your ops people, your security people, by a set of interviews. At the end, we can deliver the idea of a current state report, key findings and recommendations, and a roadmap of what your next step should be. If you are interested in this, please read more. You can tell I'm not a sales guy, can't you? Because I lingered over the first slides, and then when it comes to the actual product, I'm just, I'll go through this as quickly as I can because I want to hear Peter talk about some more interesting things. So
tell me about it.
If you're interested in the DevSecops assessment, please read more. We're happy to talk to you about this. And other than that, all I can say is thank you. And I'm going to hand it over to Peter.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Before doing that, let me grab a glass of water just a second.
Yeah, all this talking is thirsty work. But yes, Peter's going to be talking to you shortly about some more technical approaches straight from the brilliant minds at GitLab. So if you're interested in seeing something along the more technical lines, feel free to stick around for his section of the talk. I have to say, I've been through his slides and it does look like he's going to do some good stuff. So I'm also very much looking forward to see what he's going to say at this subject.
Thank you. That's such a great teaser trailer, so to say, for the content. Thank you. I'm back with my perfect glass of water. And regarding the stuff that you mentioned, Darren, I can connect to that so much. I mean, not being such a salesperson, I mean, technically at GitLab, I'm working as part of the sales organization. So like sales organization, customer success, and I'm part of that. And it's always like, Peter, you have to become a better salesman. You have to sell our partner incentives and everything. And I just want to talk about the technology. That's what I'm good at. I'm not good about percentages and stuff like that.
It's that awkward moment when you ask the nerd to start selling things. It's
I mean, yeah, if I must, I can do it, but let's just stick to the pipelines, right? That's where I'm at home. So I can connect to that on so many levels. Okay, let me reorganize my windows a bit and share my screen in a minute. Yeah, please bombard me with questions. I mean, Darren. And where am I? Where am I? I'm always all over the place. And finally finding the share screen button. Okay, do you see my screen?
I certainly do.
It's all there. Awesome. I'm so happy. Okay, so what I will be talking about, the DevSecops platform, right? So since I am from GitLab, I am attacking this topic more or less on the, as I previously said, from the technical level, and on the technical level, obviously, from the point of view of GitLab. So what Darren was talking about, the whole security topic and how security can be part of your whole process, your organization. I'm trying to complement that a little bit with tools, right? So like, how can you do these things or support these activities, like for example, what we talked about, like convincing the C-level people. How can you do that? How can you back up your claims with data? How can you show people that the value that security brings into your organization is really there? So that's what I would like to talk about here, and how GitLab, obviously our product, my company's product, can help you with that. So this is what my part of the presentation will be about. And in this slide, I just really quickly would like to iterate on the fact that Darren said that DevSecops is one topic, essentially. Obviously, security is right in the middle. I really like this acronym because it for me, it signifies perfectly that security is right in the middle. It's covering ops and dev at the same time. So it's not something that you do just at the end, but you must do it through the whole process, essentially. So everybody should be part of it, obviously, as Darren said. Some people more involved, like the security professionals, some people less involved. Everybody should be aware of it. And let's start with the problems. So what we usually see when people say that, okay, I want to go full in on security, I want to do it right, I want to make it part of my DevOps practice, my processes, so my day-to-day job. And one of the reasons what we see, and I think it resonates well, and most of my presentation will actually resonate with this point that Darren made early in his presentation, that the best security tool is not necessary, or the best DevOps tool is not necessary that is the best point solution tool for everything. The best tool, in my opinion, or in my company's opinion, and many security professionals, by the way, in the industry, is that the best tool is that can make it seamless for you, right? So it's not like you have to put in extra effort and extra work just to make the process of starting from source code, or starting even sooner, so starting with a work item, an idea, let's say, and finishing it with a deployment into production. So the tool that can make it the most seamless will be the best for your security. At least that's what we at GitLab believe, because these are the problems that we usually identify with our customers. These are the problems that, again, it's not something that we made up. This is what our customers are telling us, that the biggest issues that they say is that when they have a bunch of point solutions, that they have to put them together, to chain them together, to make them one DevOps platform, so to say, in a manner of like do-it-yourself DevOps, as the slide signifies, is that it takes a lot of time and effort on the part of the people who are using these tools. So just it's very, very simple, but like switching in between these tools, like correlating that, okay, I have this merge request, which connects in one tool, which connects to this work item in this backlog of this tool, but then the pipeline that's getting triggered by this merge request is in a third tool. So just this, it seems like a very trivial thing to state, but it is an issue. When you have to do it thousands of times a day, it can take a lot of time and effort. And similarly, it makes security more difficult because all the data that you have connected to your development process is in different tools, right? So your source code is in one database, in one solution, maybe in one cloud or on one server of yours. The data of your merge request, that conversation that you are making there, is in another tool. So you have to be more on your toes to secure all of these point solutions independently of each other. And you have to make sure that the integration that you keep in between those, you either keep it yourself, which is work that you are spending with maintaining your tools, instead of developing your services, which are bringing the company money, right? So either spend time with that yourself, or you pay somebody to do it for you. You must do it because these integrations must be kept updated, not just the individual tools, but the integrations between them, to keep the whole tool chain secure. And of course, it makes collaboration difficult because you are not using the same tools. So there will be people who are more proficient with this one, that one. You get these people who are like the knowledgeable person about this particular software or that. If you have just one tool that can do all of these, then everybody is more or less on the same standing ground, so to say. So you have less issue about, you have less context switches. And if you are a developer, I'm sure you know the feeling of context switching when you don't want to context switch, right? You are zooming in on a problem, you are developing something, and then you get a call, then you get an email, you have to jump into a call. It's similar to that, right? You don't have this flow experience if you have to change between tools all the time. So these are the issues that we usually see with our customers.
Yeah, one thing I could maybe add on to that is the difference you'll see is not additive. So if you have two tools, it's not like having two tools. It's exponential. So for two tools, it's 3. For 3 tools, it's 5. As you add more tools, you're going to see a larger and larger kind of distraction index. So this kind of view that we're seeing here is in this DIY DevOps is all too common and all too difficult for developers to navigate.
Absolutely, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better, actually. Yes. And the answer to these problems, obviously, from GitLab. So what else would be? It's GitLab. So the design philosophy that went into GitLab from the very beginning and to this day, that it's one single application, it's really important to see that point that it's literally one binary, right? So when you install it on your server, you can do it with just one single apt-get install, and there you go. Obviously, for bigger workloads, you need a more robust setup than that. But I'm just trying to stress that it's not a bunch of solutions from one company who is keeping them in line, so to say. So different product teams working on different products and trying to keep everything in sync. It's literally one application that we develop with one user interface. The data model is the same. So all the data that's in your DevOps toolchain, DevSecops toolchain, is in one database, literally one database. It's completely cloud agnostic, so we don't have any preference. You can go AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, doesn't really matter. We support installing GitLab and deploying into on-premises infrastructure. So installing GitLab on your own computers, your own servers, and deploying to those on the exact same level. So there's no we have some partnerships with these companies, so Google, AWS, Red Hat, whatever, but there's no priority partnerships in that matter. So we keep it very agnostic of the vendor that you use for hosting your actual applications. And similarly, we have the security features built into every step of the development process, right? So as you can see on this, I really love this diagram. I don't want to pat myself on the back because I didn't do it, but my company is creating these diagrams. But I like this one particularly because I think it signifies really nicely that you have this infinite loop of DevOps and the security is all over it, right? So it's not like you do security checks when you are coding, when you are building, when you are deploying, it's all there. And it's made possible by not having point solutions, but having this one application that is using under the hood the same security capabilities for all of the features that you have. And by developing it all together, so all the features together, GitLab can make it possible that it's always aligned for the whole product. And it's always up to date. I think that's something that Darren also stressed out, that having outdated or not modern security tools is at least as bad as not having them. Sometimes, in my opinion, is even worse, right? Because you can get security warnings that are completely irrelevant that you might spend time with. That is even worse than not doing anything about any issues. So I would say this is what we see as the solution here.
And there's something really cool in this, in that it's like brute forcing attack surface reduction. Like, instead of having all these things exploded all over, they're just here on one platform. It's such like a cool concept because, usually we're talking about securing 10 tools, and this is just, it's here. Security effort is reduced by such a huge amount, just purely because of attack surface reduction. It's like such a cool, like forced approach to it. You don't need anything else, so just install this. I like it. I want to hear more.
Yeah, absolutely. And updating, which is always a nightmare, right? You have to update all of your tools to keep them in line because you update just one of them and the whole integration might break. That's not the case with GitLab because you update everything in literally one step, right? Every part of the product has one version number. So it's just go up to that version number, do the database migration, good to go, have a nice day, have a cup of coffee, right? Instead of doing it for a week or something like that, having outages.
That sounds like a much easier workday, I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. But one important thing that from this slide and from what I said so far might seem to be surprising, but what is really important about GitLab is that I think this is not surprising. GitLab is a very opinionated tool. GitLab is being made by the company GitLab, and we use GitLab internally. So GitLab is being developed using GitLab. So a lot of stuff that we put into the product is based on our own use of the product and obviously the feedback from our customers. And obviously, if you are working with GitLab, there's like a preferred way of doing stuff, right? So like a default workflow. But it's also very important that GitLab can be adopted in smaller pieces or just 1 or 2 features. And it's also possible to switch out features. So let me switch here. Yes, this is the slide, I think. Yeah, this is the slide I was looking for. So it's a very overloaded slide, just a bunch of text. What I really want to highlight here is that GitLab is doing tons of stuff, but any of these you can switch out for your own solution. So let's say I'm coming from the .NET world. I don't know about the US, but I'm sure about in Europe. If you are working with .NET, SonarQube is one of the default tools that you use for code checks, so like static code analysis. If you want to use that, so GitLab has a feature for that. It can absolutely do it for you. But if you want to, or you need to, so you have some company policies that says that you must use SonarQube on your projects, you can do that. So GitLab has an API. We have some built-in integrations, but if some of those built-in integrations doesn't work, so for example, with Jira, we have a historically good relationship with Atlassian. If you want to use Jira for backlog tracking, feel free. GitLab has a feature for that, but you can switch it out with Jira if you need to. Obviously, the best experience you will have if you will just use everything from GitLab, but if you want to, or if you need to, it's there, it's possible. So it's not like you are putting yourself in a situation where you are essentially hostage of the tool or the company of GitLab. It's luckily not like that. It's open source. The whole application, it's all there. So that's also a sign of openness and transparency that we have our backlog. Most of our backlog is also open, apart from the security issues. Obviously, we don't want to put them out to the public because that's not good practice, telling your enemies that these are the attack vectors that they can use. But apart from that, all the product, so where we are heading with the product, what features we are working on, all in the open, everybody can see, everybody can comment. So yeah, no vendor lock-in for GitLab. That's not our strategy here at all. Just wanted to stress that out. And one more thing that I wanted to connect back to what Darren said right at the beginning. He was talking, or we were talking about getting C-level support for your security efforts, right? And I believe that these conversations, especially with the non-technical people, so people who don't understand just by saying, hey, we must make our product secure because otherwise this bunch of bad things will happen. Not many people will understand it. Sorry?
Would you have a moment to go back to the previous slide? We got a question regarding the SBOM. Please. From Tobias, we have SBOM is listed on the slide. Can it generate an SBOM automatically? And can you have a single pane of glass like a CMDB where you can search for individual packages and get a list of where they exist and their versions?
Absolutely, that's possible. Not yet. So the last thing that you said, the searching part, right? So I search for, let's say, I don't know, Log4j. If I have Log4j in my project and is that used, that feature, okay, I think I can share this because the backlog item is, as I said, open and publicly available. So that feature is currently under development. So having like a search feature for your whole organization that is in GitLab. So not just one project, all of the projects that you have. We are working on that feature so you can search for a certain package and then it will show up that, okay, this and this and this project is using this and that version. So that is in the works. The first half of the question, that's doable right now. So generating a software bill of materials out of the box is there. You can do it automatically. So the application does it. You will have a view on the UI, but you can also export it as a JSON file, essentially. And you can also access it through the API. So if you have some requirements that you must provide this bill of materials on each report at every midnight, I'm just making this up literally right now, you can do that with our API. So that's a nice thing about GitLab. Anything that you can do on the UI is accessible from the REST API. So the same REST API that the web UI is accessing is accessible to everybody who is using the application, of course. I hope that answers the question here.
Perfect, thanks for that.
So coming back to the previous topic of the C-level support, right? So I believe that getting this support from certain people is easier if you just have the data to back it up, right? So the claims that you have, like, we will win this and this and this, it will be so much better if we do this and that. Let's say we will do automated deployments that will make our release cycle 10 times faster. Yeah, of course, you can say that. And people might even say, okay, just go ahead, implement it. But there will be a time when people will ask you, okay, but does that really happen, right? So where we are, and GitLab can help with all of that as well. So we have a dedicated, as you can see, this is a screenshot actually from gitlab.org. So again, the same GitLab that is being used. This is the GitLab project. And here you can see that we have this analytics feature, which is essentially, we are storing a lot of statistics about what you are doing and how you are using GitLab in the same database where we store the source code and everything. And this feature makes it available in a nicely readable way, let's say. So here you can see some key metrics, DORA metrics. You can see statistics about your pipelines. You can see, for example, if a pipeline fails, how many successful pipeline runs you need for a successful deployment, how fast you can fix an issue. Let's say you detect an issue in production, how much time it takes from that point until you get the fix into production for that issue, right? These are all available readily in GitLab out of the box. You don't need to do anything. But again, since the database is there, if you are hosting it for yourself, obviously, if you are using the software as a service version of GitLab, we host the database for you, so you cannot just muckle around in that. But in your own installation, this data is there. It's your data. You can easily create your own reports if these are not satisfactory for you. But obviously, we develop these features in a way that most of our customers are happy with it. So based on customer feedback, based on, hey guys, what you like to see, what is the important information for you is there. And I think can be a very useful tool to drive these conversations with business decision makers about, okay, but show me the meat of it, right? What happened? How can we improve it? Where are we right now? These are all easily answerable questions with the help of these tools built inside GitLab. Yep. Next topic. Yeah, just stressing on the idea of having everything in one place. So this is again a very busy slide, but I love it so much because I think it nicely summarizes all the stuff that you can do in GitLab, right? So if you start from the left, finish at the right. So I like to say that this is something that unfortunately not I made up. I'm not so creative, otherwise I would have written a book about it, but that's what you get. I mean, but what I like to say is that GitLab is like a software factory. So that's in my head, I try to compare it to that. So it's basically on the left, you put the ideas in and the code or working, not code, but deployed production applications come out. That's how it works. Like, I mean, luckily you don't think about it as a black box after you start using it, but before starting to use it, you can think about it that way. So it's literally from the point where you get an idea or get a requirement from a customer, hey, we would like to have a button here that will create a report, etc. From that point until the point when the customer actually opens your, let's say, web application and the button is there, you can click on it and the report opens. That can all happen inside GitLab. And just to iterate again on what Darren said, having security in each and every part of this process, right? So this factory, I have a friend, a colleague actually, he's German, based in Stuttgart, obviously big fan of automotive industry, right, and cars, because he's living right next to it. And he always says that the way GitLab is doing, the way you can do software development with GitLab is very similar to what happens, let's say, in a BMW factory, right? So it's not like when you build a car, right? The security is not happening when the car is ready, right? It's not like that's the first time you try the brakes or the clutch or the windshield wipers. It's happening iteratively at each stage of the factory process. So by the time you have a car, obviously you do an overall check of the car before putting into the saloon, but you can stop the process at any time and iterate on it. Okay, this, I don't know, windshield is broken. Obviously we won't build into the car. It's the same process with GitLab for software security and software development. So you have an idea, you create a merge request and start iterating immediately. So not just with the default GitLab flow, you don't start the merge request when the feature is ready or you deem it to be ready, but at the very beginning immediately, and you start committing changes into that branch, into that merge request, so everybody in the team can see. You can have this transparency, which Darren also mentioned, this transparency that makes security possible at all, that we all know that who is working on what is happening. And if there's an issue, everybody or anybody can jump on and help. So that's what this kind of tooling makes possible, because everybody from the organization have an access to GitLab. So not just the developers, but the ops people, the security people, the project managers have the same view of everything, single pane of glass, right? And they can see, and we can all put our best efforts into creating working and not just working, but secure software. So I think that's the real value here, having these kind of platforms at hand.
I also think there's some value in that metaphor. That's absolutely perfect. You don't put the seatbelts in the car right at the end. Like, I think you should take that metaphor to the sea level and see how quickly they
right,
agree.
exactly. Yeah, a good discussion, right? Because automotive industry and car manufacturing is with us for a lot of years now, right? Everybody knows a car. Software is still like, for many companies is still like new, but today every company is a software company. Even BMW is a software company on a level, right? So I think it always helps to make these analogies, like the way you did with Tetris, right? It's similar to that, like make our industry similar to something that everybody understands, because it's just part of human life now. And it just makes it easier to make software development part of our common vocabulary in the same way.
But now I just have the other side of the metaphor with, some of these security misconfigurations. Now I have the mental images of people rocketing down the highway at 120 and realizing they haven't installed brakes. So
literally, I mean, that's what happens if you don't have this security process. I think this is very good. That's exactly what happens. Yes.
And we do have one question about the merge requests.
Sure.
So when performing merge requests, there's an approve feature. Can it be customized so that certain changes that fulfill certain conditions get approved automatically? For instance, if you work with IAC and you want to approve small changes automatically that don't violate any policy and pass the Terraform plan, could this be done natively, or would it require something like crossplane?
Doing it so it's absolutely doable. There's tons of configurations going over. So without any demonstration, just going over in speech with all of the different configurations, how you can fine-tune this approval process would be another hour of our time. So I would say that you can configure it to many things. You can even, that's what I can say with great certainty, that you can configure approvals on like the code structure level, right? So you can say that, let's imagine, for example, I do it all the time. When you have a project and you have folders, one for source code and one for documentation. Let's imagine a project like that. So in the root of the repository, you have a README, source code, and documentation. Documentation is literally just a big bunch of markdown files, nothing else. Obviously, if a change has made to just the documentation, why would you need an approval? Or maybe you need an approval from a completely different group. right? Some copywriters, because this is public documentation. So you can configure it in a way that, okay, if stuff only changes in this folder, then this bunch of people will need to provide approvals. If it's changing in this folder, which is the source code, obviously I need some developers looking at it. So that's possible. Doing it on a more granular level, I think it's not possible right now out of the box. So saying that this part of this Terraform configuration changed, or this Docker file, etc. That's not. I mean, again, on a file level, so you can configure it on granularly the path to point to just that one file, but pretty much that's it. So file level is the smallest piece here, or the smallest amount of granularity that you can have. Anything other than that, it's not possible right now. Obviously, you can write your own integrations for that, because as I said previously, the GitLab API is available, so you can play around with that. I'm seeing some so crazy integrations from customers on that point. I mean, our customers can use this API in a way that even our engineers sometimes are like, okay, wow, that's possible. You can do that, right? Because you are always coming in with a fresh pair of eyes, and sometimes you see something that the original creators haven't even noticed. I hope that's an answer to the question.
Yep, I'm sure that should cover it.
Okay. And more or less closing of this, I have 2 more slides, literally. So closing of my part of the presentation is one feature. So I've talked a lot about GitLab, obviously. My part of the talk was pretty much about that. One feature I would really like to highlight is Auto DevOps, which is something that I personally believe we are not stressing enough. So GitLab is not putting enough highlight on this feature, but especially for people or organizations who are new to GitLab, this feature can be extremely useful. So you can imagine GitLab Auto DevOps, actually it is coming from a customer. So I was explaining to a customer what GitLab Auto DevOps is, and he said, so it is like scaffolding for CI/CD pipelines. And I was like, yeah, that's it. So since then I'm using that way of wording. So you can imagine, if you're a software developer, I'm sure you created a new project in a programming language. Let's say I'm a .NET developer by heart. So when I create a new project, I go to Visual Studio, a new project, select the project, okay, and it will populate a folder with a bunch of files already, right? And a bunch of configuration, even a git ignore, stuff like that. So that's pretty much what Auto DevOps is for CI/CD pipelines. So it works like that. If you don't create a pipeline yourself for your project, it will, based on a lot of heuristics and statistics and looking at the source code of your repository, it will try to, and surprisingly successfully, it usually does a basic pipeline, and sometimes even a complex pipeline. It really depends on the software stack that you are using. So for popular languages like Node.js or Java, it creates a pretty comprehensive pipeline, I would say, with static code security, dynamic application security checks. So a bunch of things it will build. And for a complex project, so if you are having a project that's been worked on for 10 of years, and it's already really complex using multiple languages, this might not do much. This might not do anything for you. For greenfield projects, it's incredibly valuable because you don't need to understand anything about how a pipeline is built in GitLab. It can give you like a starting point, right? So no experience needed, works with many technical stacks, very low technical requirements. I will touch on that later. And it can give you a starting point where you can see, okay, this is what GitLab can do for me. These are the different kind of security analyzers that included in the project or the product for me out of the box. And then I can decide, okay, I want to keep this, I want to replace this part, I want to branch it off and build it in multiple ways. But a great starting point, I would say. And regarding the technical requirements, you really don't need much. I mean, if you want to use it to its fullest extent, you need a Kubernetes cluster because it's using some Kubernetes integration for doing dynamic application security testing. But that's like not the only way you can do it. You can do it with plain or virtual machines, or you can miss that feature completely and build it into the pipeline later. So that's what I'm saying, that apart from this dynamic application security testing feature, everything else is just there out of the box. So like, I'm always telling my customers and my partners, give it a try, see if it works for you. If it works, awesome. It gives you a starting point. If it's not, yeah, then you can still start from the beginning and build your pipelines yourselves. But if you can, yeah, make sure you give it a try. I think it's a great feature for newcomers to GitLab for sure, and not highlighted enough in our marketing materials, in my opinion. How about you, Darren? Have you seen this feature? Oh, okay, we have a question. Okay.
Yeah, actually, the question's from me. I wondered if this was available also in the open source version, because this seems like it would be really cool for example, startups like who have like low man count and have the kind of speed they're trying to maintain. This seems like it could be really good for the start of their journeys to get them kicked off.
Actually, I need to double check that. I'm sure that it's available in the Ultimate and the Premium package. I'm really curious if it's available, but it should be. Let me see.
Because I know a lot of startups have they often lag behind when it comes to even DevOps, not even security.
No, it's there. It's there. I just checked. It's included in all tiers. I think it's so Auto DevOps works like that. It's pulling in a lot of these features, right? Building a very complex pipeline. And some of those features are not available in the free tier. But the fact that, right, so like generating this starter pipeline is certainly there. And I think exactly as you said, so for startups who are starting completely new in greenfield projects is just perfect starting point to just get familiar. Okay, how does a pipeline that is more complex than, let's say, Hello World looks like in GitLab, right? So what can it give me, right? The tool. So that's a great point. Absolutely. Yep. Okay, and to just close off this part, I really wanted to include this slide because I think it's very important. It's very nice. It's a kind of data that, again, can be used to win over C-level people. I'm always coming back to that because I think what Darren was talking about is really the important part of this discussion. And I'm really just I'm just trying to put this technical stuff around it. And I think this is a very, very good source of information. So the Global DevSecops survey, you can access it on our website. There's the URL. I think, Darren, if you could paste it into the chat, I would be really thankful for that. The URL. Thank you very much. So it's free to download. I think you have to give an email address and a name, obviously for marketing purposes. Nevertheless, it's a PDF file, roughly 20 pages. So not like it's less than an afternoon read for sure. And what we are doing at GitLab, that each year for, I don't know how many years now, 2 or 3 years maybe, we reach out to our customers and ask them, okay, how does your DevSecops toolchain looks like? How many tools are you using? What kind of tools are you using? Are you happy with those tools? What are your goals? Which direction you are taking security in your own organization, in your own DevOps journey? And this is all condensed into this one PDF, right? So obviously it's a bit opinionated because it's only GitLab customers. So obviously people will be using GitLab who are filling this survey, but still just looking at that group, I think the data that is included here can be really useful to drive these conversations with the top level or business decision makers in your organizations about why security matters. You can show that. And that's what I'm usually saying in my presentations. Don't believe me. Don't believe me that security is important. Don't believe somebody from GitLab who is trying to sell you GitLab, right? I mean, obviously, I will say that security is important. By GitLab, your life will be much better. Don't believe me. Believe the customers who already bought GitLab and are already realizing value from these security tools, that this is what you can do, right? If you use GitLab, this is available for your company as well. So again, don't believe me, believe the customers. This is what they are saying, not me, not what GitLab is saying at all. And yeah, pretty much that's it from my side. So we still have a couple of minutes. If anybody has any questions, both Darren and I am really happy to answer those. And yeah, thank you very much for the questions so far. I think they were really, really good questions, and I will just stop the sharing so you can stare at our beautiful faces here instead of this hideous diagram on my computer.
We did get one quite interesting question about, good to talk about 5-year vision in terms of cybersecurity. What are our predictions regarding SAST and DAST scanning as being part of the pipeline? If we imagine we truly shift left and take advantage of technologies like GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT to review code and make sure it's secure by design, would SAST/DAST scanning become obsolete within the next few years? That's a really good question. I like that question.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it has the potential to become obsolete. I think the use of these automated coding tools has the potential to eliminate this kind of testing. I couldn't say that it's 5 years away. I think it's not just a possibility, but a likelihood coming up over like maybe the next 20 years as these tools take over. I can't say 5 years it will be gone. I wouldn't put my head out like that, but yeah, we're at least going to see, I would say, a large reduction in it because of things being handled by automated AI-based tools.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think it's the way these tools are, especially in the past couple of years, have been exploded in terms of their capacity of doing meaningful work. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, it's unbelievable, and also, I think there will be a really funny. I think about this a lot because it's really interesting to me, and I believe there will be a really funny period when we will be using these tools to generate at least parts of the source code that we are writing. And we will be using these AI tools to check that source code just from a different vendor. Right?
mm-hmm.
So I already got into a situation. I don't remember what website was. It doesn't really matter, right? But the point was that I need to do that captcha, right? Please select the bunnies on the pictures, right? 9 bunnies in a grid. I have to select to filter out AIs, right? Abusing the website. And the pictures themselves were clearly generated by AI because these were like bunnies standing in the ocean and standing in lava. So I was like, so we are already using AIs to generate pictures that will filter out AI that is trying to abuse the application. So I imagine having that. I don't know how long time frame and how soon it will come, but I can imagine that there will be a time frame in our life when it will be like that with security tools and source code generational tools.
But are you not worried about turning these AI tools against each other? Might be what starts the robot uprising. That would be my big fear there.
Yeah.
But it seems we don't have any more questions on the line, so I think we will take these last couple of minutes to thank you all for joining us here. This has been great. Thank you for allowing us to indulge our nerdiness and talk to you about these subjects for an hour and a half. And I'd like to thank GitLab for setting this up and inviting me to be a nerd for an hour and a half. It's been good fun.
Yes, absolutely. I am really thankful for this opportunity to co-present with you, Darren. Always a joy to talk with somebody who actually understands this kind of stuff and actually can approach this stuff from the developer point of view, right? Because I think that's where we have a really small intersection of people who can talk about this and people who really understand the pain. So I think this was valuable. And thank you for the audience. Very, very good questions, very insightful questions. So
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for joining us.
Every participant, yes.
Thank you from us at Eficode and Peter over at GitLab. It's been great.
Yes.
And now I think one of us has to figure out how to stop the webinar.
Yeah, we are not technically enabled for that.
Oh. Well, that's always reassuring. I guess we just stay here and chat until it ends.
Pretty much that's it, yeah. Okay, I think we can both leave and it should stop.
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay, thank you. See you, Dan. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.